On the evening of Wednesday, June 24th, 2026, Shohei Ohtani got so fed up with his own catcher that he started calling his own pitches mid-game, and the Dodgers still won. That's where we're at. The Dodgers have a 6-foot-tall, 220-pound issue named Dalton rushing, or do they? We'll get into all that in a minute. Dodgers fans, welcome into Tinseltown, your Los Angeles Dodgers, as we record this on the afternoon of Friday, June 26th. Sit in MLB best, 52-29, right at the midway point of the season. 81 games through the season, 52-29. And let's appreciate this. They have the best record in all of baseball. They have a 9-game lead in the National League West. They're actually playing second place Padres this weekend in a huge series. Best run differential in baseball, and it's dominant. I think it's by like 30 runs or so, 20 plus runs at least. This team's been the class of not only the National League, but all of Major League Baseball. Mind you, this has been with Blake Snell, Tyler Glasnow, Edwin Diaz, Kike, Brusdar Graterol, Evan Phillips, Bobby Miller, Gavin Stone, Ben Kasparius, all these guys limited, not part of the team, not part of the story at all. Tommy Edman out for most of the season. He just came back. Will Smith has been hurt. Teoscar's been hurt. Everybody's been hurt. Everybody's been out. Mookie missed a month. Everybody's been hurt. And nevertheless, the resilience of this team, it's real. And I don't want you to tell me about the money they spend and that they've just spent their way out of it. Because I'm watching guys. I'm watching the resurgence of a lot of players happen in real time. I'm watching the ascension of a lot of players. A couple that we're going to get into in a moment. But anyways, there's a reason to be proud of this team. We haven't even seen their playoff starting 9 play a single game together. And yet they have the best record in baseball and the best run differential by a long shot. But there is still real questions with this team. There's still real concerns. And I think the series starting tonight is going to go a long way towards answering these questions about the Los Angeles Dodgers. First half of the season's in the books. We're on the back 9. So let's dive right into it. The Dodgers have a massive series starting tonight, starting this weekend against the San Diego Padres. And then it's actually, I think it's 7 matchups. Yes, 7 matchups in the next 10 games between the San Diego Padres and the LA Dodgers. So the Dodgers enter Petco Park tonight. They're going into San Diego for the first part of this, 7 games in 10 days series stretch where, again, they're the best team in baseball. Padres are 9 games behind them at 42-37. They're firmly in the wild card chase, but they're going to really need some head-to-head wins, the Padres, if they have any hopes of catching the Dodgers. And this isn't just, 3 games. This is a big stretch where it can essentially be make or break for both teams. And if the Dodgers win this series, push the lead towards double digits as you enter July, I think we can all but pencil in the Los Angeles Dodgers for yet again another National League West title. I think it would be like they're like 14th in the last 15 years, some insane number like that, where they just continue to rattle off division win after division win. And I think depending on how they do in these next 7 games, again, if they go head-to-head with the Padres and come out 5-2, you're looking at a 10-plus game lead as we enter past the 4th of July into the All-Star break. I just don't think there's any coming back from that. Really interesting. We talk about the Dodgers. We talk about their recent division title runs. We talk about the success that they've had in recent years, and we'd be remiss if we don't talk about Friday night. Walker Buehler will pitch against the Los Angeles Dodgers for the Padres. Now, why is that so significant? The Dodgers and the Padres hate each other. In the 2020s, it's been a real rivalry. Those two teams, neck and neck, do not like one another. And the Padres deliberately lined up Walker Buehler to open the series against his former team. They didn't have to do that. They could have shuffled the rotation, but they chose to. So Walker Buehler has been excellent, at least if we're just going to look at the counting stats, over his last 5 outings. ERA of 2, 24 strikeouts. He's been excellent. He's been a revelation for the Padres of late. And we know that he's talked about how difficult it was for his time with the Dodgers to come to an end. He never really looked the same from like 2022 on after the elbow surgery. And despite pitching very well for them, getting the last out of the World Series in 2024, the Dodgers said, no, you're not part of our future pitching plans. And I'm going to be honest, it looks like they've been vindicated. I'm looking at his StatCast right here. I'm looking at his numbers. He's a shell of himself. ERA of just about south of 4. Expected ERA of about 4.5. Expected batting average against of 271. He's getting, again, players are hitting the ball hard off him. He's not getting much swing and miss. He's not getting whiffs. He's not getting chases. Gets a lot of ground balls, limits the walks, but he's a filler rotation guy. He's not a guy, I think, at this point that any team could really trust as a starting pitcher in October. And that's just the reality of it. And I think for Dodger fans, this is a uniquely interesting series because we love Walker Buehler. I've got like 3 bobbleheads of him. He was clutch for the Dodgers. He always pitched well in big games. Starting in the 2018 World Series, Game 3 against the Red Sox. First 18-inning game for the Dodgers in World Series history, which is It's insane that I'm saying first because it's happened twice now. Insane. And now it's weird. We don't like the Padres. Who would like the Padres? Nobody likes. I don't even know if Padres fans like the Padres. I wouldn't, but it's a bummer. We got to root against the guy. We got to root against the guy that's wearing the brown and yellow, and it's really weird for us because Walker wants to prove a point. He wants to go out and say, "Hey guys, you got another pitcher in your rotation with an ERA north of 5. You gave up on your boy, and your boy always delivered for you. When you had no starting pitching in the 2024 playoffs, who stepped up and was an anchor at the number 3 spot? Who dominated the Yankees? Who pitched well against the Mets? Who was the guy that was always able to be counted on? Me, Walker Buehler." And so it's hard even as a Dodgers fan. I hope we win like a low-scoring game, or I hope at least we keep it close through 6, and then Walker can come out and we just explode, bump up Mason Miller's ERA to 3. I don't care. But it's weird for the Dodgers. It's bittersweet. Petco Park's going to be rocking, as it has been since the Padres have been relevant. Of course, all those fans came out of the woodwork now to support. I'm sure they'll be in full force for a Friday night against the Dodgers with Walker Buehler pitching. That's the first game of the series. Roki Sasaki against Walker Buehler. Again, Roki's coming off a really interesting start against the Orioles, where I said it was sort of going to tell us which Roki we were going to see. Were we going to see the Roki that was continuing to improve, or the Roki that we saw against the White Sox that scuffled mightily? And I think he delivered largely well against the Orioles. He almost went six shutout innings, gives up a couple home runs right before he leaves. But Roki's been on the incline. Roki's been since May getting better and getting better. Little snag, but generally I think he's having an upward trajectory. So very interesting Friday night. How's Roki going to do in one of the most pitcher-friendly parks against an offense that's just not good? To me, this has Roki Sasaki 7 innings, 2 runs written all over it. This is a big bounce back game for Sasaki. Game 2, Randy Vasquez, who's been awful of late for the Padres, against Yamamoto. Again, Yamamoto's been the Dodgers' ace, and I think the most interesting game of this series will be Game 3. Emmett Sheehan against Michael King. Michael King's been on the downtrend. It's going to be a daytime game. I think it could be an offensive onslaught. It could be a Colorado game in San Diego, and Emmett Sheehan, guys, has been awful. He's largely been terrible, especially of recent. Last start was atrocious. Couldn't make it out of the second in that one other start, I think, against the Angels. Basically have a bullpen game when Sheehan pitches, it feels like these days. And he's pitching for his spot in the rotation. So very, very interesting, consequential game in a lot of ways. All these games matter. Revenge game for Walker Buehler. The storylines write themselves. Do or die for Emmett Sheehan. Is Roki going in the right direction? Is he not? Can the Dodgers basically write off, the National League West this weekend as we head into July? And again, we'd be remiss if we don't bring up the elephant in the room, the 2025 ghost, right? Why does this series matter so much? Why does the next 10 games for the Dodgers matter so much? Because last season, at the halfway point, the Dodgers were 50-31. Basically the same record they have right now. And they were 5.5 games up on the Padres. But then a week later, they went on a winning streak. They swept the White Sox. Kershaw got his 3,000th strikeout. And the Dodgers came into 4th of July weekend with a 9-game lead on the San Diego Padres. The same number of games that they lead the West by right now. What did the Dodgers do? Over the next 74 games, they went 37-37, 500. If you look from July 4th weekend on to the end of the season, the Padres actually gained 6 games on the Dodgers. I don't want to say they won the division by 6 games, but they gained 6 games on the Dodgers. The season was a 74-game season that started on July 4th. The Dodgers are a 500 team, and the Padres win the West by 6 games. Complete implosion. Neck and neck with San Diego down the stretch. Essentially, Mike Schilt and Dave Roberts were playing who wants the division less, and the Padres chickened out and won that series. They won that game. Now, it is important to note, the Dodgers did last season during their awful stretch, when I said they went 37-37, they had an expected win-loss record of 42-32. Much different. So based on the underlying numbers, what that tells me is we all watched the games. The Dodgers' collapse was largely driven last year by a historically bad bullpen in terms of inheriting runners, high leverage blowups, blowing lots of saves. It was real, but it was also an outlier. Obviously, the offense fell apart when Max Muncy got hurt. The offense looked largely inept for stretches of the end of the summer into the fall. And I guess that's where I have a little bit of concern, because last year's offense that scuffled down the stretch is basically this season's offense. Ohtani's hitting for less power, but he's still performing. Freddie Freeman. He's always going to do the same. This new version of Mookie Betts that's just, I'd say, a primarily defensive first shortstop, high to mid 7s OPS guy. Pages virtually has the same stats now that everything's balanced out and he struggled so badly. He basically has last year's stats. Teoscar Hernandez too. They're all performing roughly at the same level. So the run prevention is what created the scuffle last year. And I guess the big question now to ask is, why is this year's Dodgers team different than last year's team? Why is this year's Dodgers team not going to give us heart attacks down the stretch with the Padres? And it's easy. It's easy to understand. For one, like I said, the offense is largely the same. Tucker's barely outperforming Michael Conforto from what he gave us last year. Insane to say out loud, but it is true. Tommy Edman's return, I think it's a genuine boost. He didn't really play much last season, and he's actually looked very good for the Dodgers since returning. But again, most of their lineup is the same. It's basically the same unit. Similarly inconsistent. Andy Pajas is streaky. Teoscar Hernandez is streaky. Mookie Betts, we don't know where we're going to get. Freddie Freeman, largely consistent, but he has his streaks and ups and downs too. The key difference is the bullpen. It's just more trustworthy. It's better constructed. And it's not a liability. Last year was a liability. Even though the offense wasn't great, the offense was good enough. I don't predict Max Muncy to hopefully go down for 6 weeks, 7 weeks again. And I don't think the Dodgers bullpen, with Edwin Diaz and Evan Phillips coming back, who've barely pitched this season, I just don't see it being a problem. Nobody's really struck me as a problem guy on the team. Blake Treinen's underlying numbers are concerning, but they don't really rely on him to be a high leverage guy when it really matters. Tanner Scott was a disaster last year. He's been a revelation this year. He's probably an all-star. He should probably be on the all-star team as a relief pitcher. He's been nails for the Dodgers. Vesey is Vesia. Jack Dreyer struggled a little bit recently, but he's coming off the IL. I'm not going to put too much stock into that. And Kyle Hurt, outside of a couple bad games, largely fantastic. Henriquez, very much improved from last season. So I think the Dodgers bullpen should give us, if they win this series, reason to believe that they're fine. And they're going to win the division again. And the Padres, on the flip side, not as dangerous as last year's squad. They're last in batting average, OPS, and runs scored. I mean, their bullpen's great. Yes, I'm not going to sit here and deny that. Mason Miller is the best closer in baseball. They got a fantastic bullpen. But what lead are you protecting? A bullpen's useless. And I think their starting rotation's worse. You basically swapped Walker Buehler in for Dylan Cease. That's not an upgrade. So I think the division title risk last year was a combination of bad bullpen, bad pitching, really. They didn't have the starting pitching I think they do this year. Not necessarily a full roster quality issue. So if the Dodgers, even if their offense scuffles, I think they're safe. A series win or a sweep over San Diego this weekend, forget about the next 4 games, likely buys the Dodgers room to stumble, which they do. We remember, August comes around, they stumble. We remember that one season they lost. I think they were on pace to be the greatest team ever. Sports Illustrated put out the article. They fell apart. I think they went like 1-16 over their next 17 games. Still ended up being the number 1 seed in the NL. But it's not a question if they're going to have rough patches. I think it's just a question of, are those rough patches going to be a crisis? I say no. Bottom line, you win this series. If you're the Dodgers, you win 2 out of 3, you sweep. You go ahead and start penciling in another NL West title. Lose it, 6-game lead. A lot more interesting. Okay, so let's talk about the walking wounded and the one guy who needs a wake-up call. The walking wounded, who are the guys that hurt? Let's give you a little injury update. So Kyle Tucker's going to be back, it looks like, this weekend. So the Dodgers kind of rested him throughout the Minnesota series. Lower back spasms, again, not a serious issue. But they wanted to sit him, they wanted to rest him, get him right for this series against the Padres. It matters a lot. Injury wasn't that serious, but I think there's a much more serious pressing issue with Kyle Tucker. Across 74 games this season, he's hitting .234. His OPS is 705. Okay, so he's nearly in the 6s, and he has 8 home runs. That's well below Kyle Tucker's standard, and I think that is massively below the standard of somebody who signed a $60 million average annual value deal to come to LA. That is just unacceptable. And all season long, Roberts has been talking about Kyle Tucker needing to get back to who he is as a hitter, controlling the zone, reducing his chase rate. Kyle Tucker's approach is awful. He does not look like the same Kyle Tucker, like mentally, that we saw in Houston. The great Kyle Tucker, the Kyle Tucker that was borderline superstar, was the guy that's worth $60 million a year. So that's good and bad news. Bad news because the dude can't, I think by now we would have hoped he'd figure out his approach. Still doesn't look like he has. I don't get why. So that's weird and concerning. But the good news is it leads us to believe that Kyle Tucker is still there. He's only 29. Okay, so he's not in that age range of mid-30s where he starts to tail off. We still got some really good Kyle Tucker years left, hopefully. And I think it starts right now in the second half. If he just fixes his approach, and I got it right here, if Kyle Tucker can just fix his approach, because right now his chase rate's gotten better, but he still whiffs at pitches. He still strikes out a lot, and he's just not barreling up balls very well. Roberts has framed this as a 4-day rest, mental reset, but largely Alex Cole and Ryan Ward they've outplayed Kyle Tucker. So for the salary cap folks, and we'll get into that later, the folks that want to clamor for a salary cap, what's your answer for Kyle Tucker? Knock him off the Dodgers roster. I think we have more wins with Ward and Cole playing every day. Probably. He's been a black hole, as has the Dodgers' number 2 spot in the order. Will Smith is still out, and that absence is kind of quietly hurting the Dodgers. So over the last 17 games without Smith, the Dodgers are 11-6, which is good, obviously. But they're pitching to a 4.8 team ERA, so nearly a 5 ERA in that span. Not a lot of blowouts, too, so it's consistently like these bad games. It's consistently giving up lots of runs. And Smith is the invisible thread, I think, for the Dodgers that's connecting a lot of the problems. So the pitching ERA, the rushing situation, the catching depth, obviously Chucky Robinson's not it, and apparently neither is rushing. Will Smith he's one of the finalists to be an All-Star despite being on the IL. Funny enough, so is Drake Baldwin. So that tells you everything you need to know about how irreplaceable Smith is. I think Smith being hurt actually strengthens his All-Star case, strengthens his case for value. Did you know Will Smith is actually the most unlucky hitter in baseball this season? He is like elite in terms of run production and offense. Go look at StatCast. Go look at the Baseball Savant page. He is the most unlucky hitter, and he's like, I think, the best offensive catcher in terms of expected production. So that tells me when Will Smith comes back, we're probably going to get last year's offensive guy back and watch the team ERA plummet back to where it should be. Because people underestimate what a catcher does and what a catcher is. A catcher is not just a guy that sits behind the plate and catches the ball and tries to prevent pass balls, which in and of itself is difficult. But he has to call the pitches. He has to call the game. He has to know the pitching staff. Nowadays, you have to know when to and when not to challenge correctly. Probably avoid a lot of issues we had on Wednesday night if that was the case with Will Smith behind the plate. So the longer Smith is out, guys, it puts more pressure on every pitcher. And it feels like his return can't come fast enough. I wish we were a little bit closer to the All-Star break. Okay, we talked about the guys that are hurt. Again, Teoscar Hernandez should probably be back soon. We don't need to dive into that too much or the significance of it. But one guy that's not hurt, pitching like he is Emmett Sheehan. He was crushed for 6 earned runs in 3 1/3 innings on Sunday against the Orioles on Father's Day. Not a good showing for the Dads. His ERA is now north of 5. Multiple home runs in 3 of his last 6 starts. And for a while, I could deal with the home runs because he wouldn't have these disastrous innings. But it's getting to a point now with Sheehan where he's starting to have the issue I worried about with Roki Sasaki at the beginning of the year, where it's one thing to have a Justin Robleski start where you give up 5 or 6 runs, but you go 6+ innings. Sheehan's going 3 innings. He's going an inning and a third. He's not making it deep into games at all anymore. And I don't blame Roberts for saying this, but Sunday in San Diego, when Sheehan pitches against the Padres, he is pitching for his spot in the rotation, essentially. He is. And Roberts has said as much, essentially saying, and I quote, it just hasn't been where it's needed to be and where he wants it to be. Sheehan, if he can't get through a quality start against the Padres, we got to have some conversations. He got bailed out by River Ryan, who gave up like 8 runs in one of his last minor league starts. But River Ryan's been knocking on the door for so long now, and it's getting to the point in the season where the Dodgers, who didn't want to rush River Ryan up to the MLB, wanted to let him ease back with the injuries that he sustained and the surgery and everything. It's getting to that point now in the season where it's like, all right, if you bring him in now to be part of the Dodgers season, he's probably not going to overpitch. He probably won't surpass his innings limit. July is about the time you were hoping to bring River Ryan up if you needed to, and it looks like they might need to. Because the rest of this rotation, guys, forget about the superstars. Robleski's arguably been their best starting pitcher all season, not named Yamamoto at least. 2.7 ERA, 50 strikeouts, 13 starts. He goes deep into games. Again, I don't know if I want him pitching a do-or-die game in October, but for the regular season, he's giving the Dodgers everything and more that they could have asked. And again, when Snell and Glasnow return, the rotation has a logjam. So that is a good thing, because when you have Snell and Glasnow, who hopefully will be back soon, that's Snell, Glasnow, Ohtani, Yamamoto. Sasaki's earning his stripes. He really is. Robleski obviously is earned his stripes. So you got your 6-man rotation right there. But right now, there's a black hole, guys. It's a black hole wearing the number 80, and it's Emmett Sheehan. So this is a do-or-die game. If Sheehan can figure this out, if he can look a little bit more like the guy we saw at the beginning of the season that doesn't have these disastrous innings like he did against the Orioles, giving up the occasional long ball is one thing. Getting guys on base, not pitching with any control, pitching from the stretch most of the game, and then giving up home runs, I can live with a solo shot. What we can't deal with is 65 pitches in 2 innings, runners on base, and you're giving up long balls that are now, instead of solo shots, 3-run home runs, grand slams. Not looking good. All right, we're going to talk about what you want to hear. It's the topic John Boy Media can't seem to get out of their mouth, and that they're unable to wipe clean in their mind. It's living rent-free, and that is the Dalton rushing drama, the ongoing saga of the backup catcher who is despite it playing on a team with Shohei Ohtani, Mookie Betts, Freddie Freeman, probably the most popular Dodger on social media for no good reason. So we already know Dalton Rushing's been a controversial figure, not in like a egregious off the field way, but like just kind of a thorn in the side kind of way. Between the comment on the Rockies about something's fishy to the thing with the Cubs, Jung-Ho Lee, all that stuff. Whatever. But now, and I didn't mind when it was turned out. I really don't care. I don't like athletes being buddy-buddy on the field that much. I don't need you to hate each other and be fighting all the time, but I don't need you to be like besties, kicking it on the baseline, shaking hands, pregame them. I have a little competitive spirit. I'm okay with that. Dalton Rushing offered his hand to Jung-Ho Lee. I really don't care. I really don't care what he has to say about somebody on the Cubs. It doesn't bother me. I really couldn't give a crap. But what I don't want is this to turn inward on the team. So Shohei Ohtani's first 10 starts with Will Smith. We all know how good Shohei was to start the season. ERA stayed under 1. 0.74 ERA, 67 strikeouts, and 61 innings with Will Smith as his catcher. Since the Smith injury, Shohei Ohtani's ERA in the 3 starts with Rushing, 4.34. Well, so that's about 4 runs higher of an ERA. Granted, in fairness to Rushing, Shohei, I think, was due for regression. He was pitching out of his mind. The results were ridiculous. It never fully matched up what we saw in StatCast, though, again, his ERA was still predicted to be like mid to low 2s. He was pitching a little out of his mind. Some regression was due for him, but not to this degree. So, on the second inning in Wednesday's game against the Twins, a pitch cross-up led to a pass ball and eventually a run. And Ohtani explained it. He called a fastball second, but Rushing was expecting an off-speed pitch from the first signal. Rushing owned it. In fairness to the guy, he said he messed up. He said it was his fault. He's never blamed anybody else. He took ownership. But the bigger issue was on 2 separate ABS challenges. Ohtani tapped his head to challenge. And again, pitchers don't have as much success with this. Catchers have the highest rate of success, then batters. Then there's a gap, and then pitchers. And Rushing shook his head both times to say, no, don't challenge this. And Ohtani said, hell no, dude. That was a strike. Ohtani challenged it anyways, and he was right. So Ohtani was proven correct. Again, in fairness to Rushing, the ball clipped the strike zone. Probably a go-either-way pitch. But Shohei Ohtani, in no way, shape, or form, has given us reason to believe that he's a high-ego guy. There are certain players that I think challenge pitches because of their own ego. Because in the heat of the moment, when you have to challenge the pitch within 2 seconds, you're like, what the hell? That wasn't a strike. Or what the hell? That was a strike. Whatever side you're on. Shohei's not that kind of guy. Shohei's even-keeled. Shohei's not, it's just not in his nature to be like, oh, hell nah, bro. That was a strike. Come on, give me that. That's not him. So if Shohei wants to challenge something, it's reasonable to assume he's probably got a case, and he's probably got a point, even if he's pitching and it's a little bit harder of a view. Shohei, if he wants to challenge the pitch, let him frickin' challenge the pitch. It's Shohei Ohtani. And then come the third inning, Shohei's now calling his own pitches via PitchCom. And then he struck out 6, allowed 2 base runners over the final 4 innings. He looked great. Pitched really good once he started calling his own pitches. And of course, cameras catch the dugout. Freddie Freeman and Dave Roberts, Mark Pryor, other coaches are coming over. The mental skills coach, I don't know what that is exactly. They all had extended conversations with Rushing on the bench. Again, you could assume it's like, get your head right kind of conversations. And Rushing post-game, talked about it, clarified it, and I got to give him credit. In fairness to Dalton Rushing, I've never seen him to be a guy that is not going to own his stuff. He gave the right answer. They asked him post-game about the situation, and his quote was, it was pretty embarrassing. I'm a grown man. It's a pretty tough pill to swallow on both sides of the ball. It wasn't a great showing. He's not going to go Aaron Rodgers and call out his teammates. He's not going to point the finger in the other direction. He's not going to go Wemby on people. He's not going to go Dylan Harper and repost lowlights of his highest paid teammate. He owned it. He took it like a champ. He's clearly, in the wrong, but I think we should pause before we pile on the guy. The real question is, what do we do with this Rushing thing? Ohtani had a diplomatic quote, and it said, there's really a way of communicating. One's by words, the other is by way of example and just taking charge and showing Rush what kind of pitch style I'm capable of. And to be fairness to Shohei, that's measured. It's Ohtani saying he had to take control of his own start. Ohtani did. Dalton Rushing he's younger than me. He's 24 years old. So naturally, he's just not going to have the years of MLB experience that Will Smith does. Will Smith is a top of the league, top 5, top 3 catcher in the sport. Excellent at calling pitches, has a really good repertoire and rapport built with the pitchers. So he knows them better. He's got the experience. He's a vet. Just like a young quarterback. A young quarterback's head coach is going to have to do everything for him. Tom Brady and Matt Stafford can audible at the line. It's just different. You know what I mean? It's just going to be different. But I think for a lot of people, really, Dalton Rushing's shtick is worn thin. It was barely okay and acceptable for Dodger fans when Dalton Rushing at the beginning of the season was hitting .450, and it seemed like he was hitting a home run every other at-bat. But since the start of May, Rushing's hitting .194, so he's hitting below the Mendoza line with 1 home run. He's cooled down and struggling. And like I said, man, like winning and success lets you get away with a lot of BS, really. And things that fans can deal with. You can deal with Aaron Rodgers being Aaron Rodgers and weird and aloof, and you don't know what he's going to do in the offseason when he's throwing 35 touchdowns and 2 interceptions on Green Bay and winning MVPs. It's a little bit different when you're on a middling Pittsburgh team that has no real future and you're holding the team hostage when going 9-8 versus 6-11. It's like, what's better? And I think Dalton Rushing's at that point. He's going to get a brunt of the you-know-what because he's just not showing up like he used to. You can get away with a lot when you're doing well. When you're up, you can talk. You can talk that trash. When you're down, you're going to get the brunt. And Roberts was honest about it, And I think Roberts does a good job of being honest when it doesn't come to injuries. When it comes to injuries, he gets super vague, right? But with this, he was very honest. He said, regarding Dalton Rushing, it's a work in progress and there's a learning curve for everything. Again, he's a young player. Now, how serious is this? I don't know. Joe Madden had an outside take. So Joe Madden commented on the situation. He knows Shohei Ohtani, managed him with the Angels. And he said, quote, Shohei Ohtani knows what he's doing. It makes the catcher's job easier if they just follow him. Fair enough. Some guys, it just works better if they're calling their own thing. But again, we know that's not what's happening when Will Smith catches. But Joe Madden added, a lot of this is a product of social media. Moments like these get handled in the locker room and are capable of going away quickly. And I think that is 100% the right take. My honest read, the stats are real. The ERA gap between Smith and Rushing is real, especially with Ohtani, and it can't be dismissed. But let's pump the brakes a little bit. Let's pump the brakes on those stats. Rushing's a young catcher with his first extended shot at being an MLB player, getting MLB time. And it's the most complex position in baseball. I think it's more complex than being a pitcher. Shohei Ohtani's not been a disgrace with Dalton Rushing catching. And I think he had positive luck with Will Smith catching. Will Smith, as I said, is a veteran. He's been in the MLB for 7-8 years now. Veterans are better, especially when it comes to the psychological, mental IQ part of the game. Will Smith has just been in the MLB for longer. He's built better relationships with these pitchers. He knows Mark Pryor better. He knows the infrastructure of the Dodgers MLB coaches better. He's older. Older people are more calm. They're more subdued. Dalton Rushing's frontal lobe hasn't developed. Let's relax a little bit. So the disparity and the lack of success that Dalton Rushing's showing, guys, pump the brakes, relax a little bit. Don't overreact to these numbers. It is normal. Strip away all the social media, strip away John Boy Media, which I think has basically done a bigger disservice to baseball than it's done positives. Thank you for showing us that the Astros cheated. You may go. You've been largely useless since. Engagement farming, I can't stand it. I think that's a bigger disgrace than whatever Dalton Rushing's doing, by the way. Let's just put that out there. Strip away all that. Dalton Rushing is younger. Dalton Rushing is developing. That's very normal. Being not as good of a defensive catcher, not as good of a game caller, completely normal. Going into a slump happens. Look at Andy Pajas. He's gone into a slump. Mookie Betts has been in a 2-year slump. It happens. It's normal. Kyle Tucker, huge slump. He's been the biggest disaster in baseball this season. So the Dalton Rushing situation is largely a non-story. But of course, social media loves to make everything seem like a big deal. Politics, media, Hollywood, reality TV, whatever medium, sports, they always love to make everything seem like a much bigger deal than it's been. Did you know before social media has gotten to the point that it is now, Yasmani Grandal used to get into screaming matches with Dave Roberts in the dugout. Used to yell at him. Yasmani Grandal, everybody on the team knew he was a clubhouse cancer. Far worse than Dalton Rushing, by the way. A disruption. The Dodgers couldn't wait to be rid of him. The Dodgers were fine going young and cheap behind the plate, despite the fact that Grandal had one of the highest upsides of offensive catchers in baseball, a switch hitter. They're like, you are a head case, get off our team. Come October, we are starting Austin Barnes, who can't hit over you. That is what the Dodgers thought of Yasmani Grandal. But social media hadn't grown to the empire it is now for us to see every little interaction and every little thing. The only social media moment I can remember was Andre Ethier getting into it with Don Mattingly in that playoff game against the Mets when no one covered third. But again, Mattingly was already on his way out anyways with new management. So what is all this to say? Ohtani's intense when he pitches. Dalton Rushing makes mistakes. He's young. He's kind of seems like a highly strung dude. The team rallied around Ohtani and they won. That's a healthy organization. That is a healthy organization. If you listen to social media and let it dictate everything you think in life, and if it was true, if everything social media told you, the sky's falling. The Philadelphia Eagles would have gone 4-13 the year Saquon Barkley got there. They were collapsing and Big Dom and all these issues with the Eagles. And they're, nope, 13-4 Super Bowl, crushed the Chiefs. Crushed the Chiefs. A lot of this locker room clubhouse stuff that you see on social media, guess what? It's a bunch of high testosterone grown men shoved into a small space together, a lot of times with conflicting opinions, and they're going to jaw with each other and go at it. Very normal. Don't make anything out of the Dalton rushing situation. He's not going to get traded. The Dodgers don't need to move off him. If he does get traded, it's for a completely other reason. They have Will Smith. Stop worrying about the Dalton rushing situation. He is a backup catcher. Sure, he's got a little bit more of a vibrant personality than Ben Rortvet or Austin Barnes. It's a non-story. People butt heads. Shohei Ohtani might not be the biggest fan of him in the world, but it's going to be fine. It's going to be fine. He's still a rook. He still knows his place. He still knows Shohei Ohtani's the GOAT, and he'll fall in line. So don't make anything out of this Dalton rushing situation. Anyways, on a more positive light, Mookie Betts hit his 300th home run Wednesday against the Twins, becoming the first Dodger to reach that milestone. 300 home runs since JD Martinez in 2023, his former Red Sox teammate. He actually nearly hit for the cycle, going 3 for 4, only missing a triple. Again, hardest hit to get. Man, Mookie Betts. If this is the end of prime Mookie, we're still gonna get good Mookie. But if this is the end of like 2023 caliber Mookie, 8 All-Star selections, 7 Silver Sluggers, AL MVP, 4-time World Series champion. That's a Hall of Fame career, we obviously know. But now moving to shortstop in the second part of his career, may he have the statistics that he once had? May he be the same Mookie that had a 950, 1000 type OPS? No. But if he can be what we've seen is a well above average a good defensive shortstop that gives you high 7s, low 8s OPS. He's been on a heater recently. I think it looks like the lack of reps, the slow starts, the weird injuries, and the illness that plagued him, and he had to put the weight back on. I think we're due for a little Mookie resurgence. Now, the baseball savant numbers, the StatCast stuff tells kind of a sobering story. His barrel rate, exit velo, and plate discipline metrics remain really good when the counting stats dip. Again, nowhere near 2023, nowhere near 2018. That version of Mookie Betts is gone, but that doesn't mean he's not still a very, very good player that can be very valuable to the Dodgers, especially if he's moved down to like 5 or 6 in the order. Take some pressure off of him, let him focus on the defense. He can still deliver hits, and it looks like moving him down in the order has actually been the best thing for him. His approach is his best tool. He never gives away at-bats. He works counts, and he rarely chases. That doesn't show up in batting average. It really doesn't, but it does show up when it comes to run creation, and that's important to the Dodgers. He follows their approach to a T, exactly what's been proven to work. Him and Max Muncy are the right-handed and left-handed versions of each other when it comes to approach, and it's fantastic. And over the last 15 games, I think the results are starting to show. 290 average, 12 runs scored. Very well-timed. Right as Andy Pajas is slumping, right as a lot of the offense, right? Will Smith is out. Kyle Tucker's been largely MIA this season. Mookie's starting to help carry the load, and it's huge. It's huge for the Dodgers, and it's typical Mookie. He comes through in big moments for the Dodgers. And it's funny that the shortstop transition, everyone hates it. Everyone wants him to move back to right field. They're convinced that's why he hasn't hit the same. No, guys, he lost 30 pounds. He lost a lot of his strength. He's been hurt a lot. He hasn't been getting his reps in. He hasn't been able to get in sync for 2 years. He's getting old. That's why his offensive numbers have dropped. It's not because he's playing shortstop. I'd say it's worked out flawlessly. He's been above average defensively at shortstop. He's been excellent. The transition there was never guaranteed. I thought it would be a disaster to move him that late in his career to shortstop. He's been the best shortstop they've had since Corey Seager. I never liked Trey Turner really that much at all. He's been awesome. He's carried the torch at the most prime defensive position outside of catcher. So while he may never be 2018 AL MVP Mookie, if he's a guy that's high on base percentage, an elite defensive shortstop, he can give you 20 home runs, score 90 runs, never gives away at-bats, and a piece of a championship team, he's earned every flower he could get. What more do you want from the guy? Especially as these contracts begin to cost more and more. Yeah, might he be a little overpaid at the end of the contract? Sure, you're paying for the player you once had. It was a discount for the guy they had back in 2020 to 2023. But as the inflation goes up on these contracts, you're not going to find a better defensive shortstop that can give you those numbers at that price point nowadays anyways. So all in all, guys, let's celebrate Mookie. 300 home runs is a huge milestone. He's going to be a Hall of Famer. I think he's going to go in as a Dodger, despite having his best season as a Red Sox. But quintessential Dodger. Quintessential Dodger Mookie Betts is moving positions for the team, doing what's best for the team. Even when he's not the guy he once was, still very, very valuable piece of the team. He deserves his love. We can be a little tough on Mookie. I've had to give you the sobering reality that he isn't what he once was, but that's okay. That's not an indictment on him. That's not trash talk. That's not hate. It's just an okay reality. People age. They're not what they once were. He is still very valuable, and he has a lot to offer to this team. That should be celebrated, and so should his 300th home run. So Mookie Betts, congratulations. Here's your flowers. Keep doing you, man. It always works. Okay, speaking of Mookie Betts and basically the entire Dodgers roster, right now the Dodgers have 7 potential all-star starters who could make it in for the Midsummer Classic. Ohtani's already in. Ohtani led all MLB players in Phase 1 voting, well over 3 million votes. He is the automatic starting DH for the National League team, 2nd year in a row, and he should be. Anyone that's arguing for Kyle Schwarber does not know ball, does not understand the sport, thinks home runs are the only thing that matters. Sure, would I rather see Kyle Schwarber in the home run derby than Ohtani? Yeah. That is the only offensive metric that Kyle Schwarber has over Shohei. On base ability, extra base hits, forget about base running and everything, because that's obviously massive advantage Ohtani, even with the knee injury. Shohei is a much better offensive player than Schwarber. He obviously deserves to be the starting DH. There shouldn't even be questions about that. But 6 more Dodgers advance to this Phase 2. So the way this works in All-Star voting now, if you're not aware, because really who cares about the All-Star game, truthfully, we'll get into that in a second. You vote for the players in Phase 1. I think like the top 2 at each position advance outside of the number 1 vote getter in each league, which was Shohei in the NL and then Ernie Clement in the American League, which is hilarious. Top 2 positions, with the exception of outfields, like top 6, because there's 3 outfield positions, move on. So to Phase 2 voting, these Dodgers all still have a chance to start at their position. Will Smith at catcher, who, as we talked about, I think his injury is showing why he's so valuable and might even be helping him make a case for the All-Star game. Freddie Freeman, again, you could argue next to Bryce Harper, the 2nd best first baseman in the NL, might deserve the start. Max Muncy's the best 3rd baseman in baseball. He advances to the next round. Mookie Betts advances at shortstop. I'm not going to say he's the top 2 shortstop in the NL right now, but he does advance, as does Andy Pages, who was great, scuffling of late, and Teoscar Hernandez, who he doesn't deserve to start the All-Star game. I'll just say that. They all have a shot to start, and we're going off merit. So Dave Roberts is obviously managing the team, bringing along Don Mattingly as they're in Philadelphia to be one of his bench coaches. It's kind of funny because the guy that, essentially pushed Mattingly aside to usher in the greatest era of Dodger baseball, I'd say the greatest Dodger manager ever, brings on the guy who preceded him. Phase 2 voting ends Monday, June 29th, so there's only 3 days. Go vote for the Dodgers, man. If you want to see a bunch of Dodgers in the All-Star game, go vote for them. And again, like I said, through these individual races, do I think every guy that advanced for the Dodgers deserves to be there? Do I think in my heart of hearts, this far into the season, Mookie Betts is better than CJ Abrams? No. Do I think Teoscar Hernandez is better than James Wood or PCA? No. Do I think Will Smith, despite being hurt, has earned the spot of being a starting catcher? Maybe not. But this is a message. This is a message to the abolish fan voting people who love, it is the same kind of person who loves to complain about everything. It's that meme of that actually sucks and it's literally the coolest thing ever, and it's like a hot dog skateboarding, if you know that meme. People have been losing their minds for as long as I can remember, every year, over players who don't deserve to start in the All-Star game. And they want to talk about who got snubbed and where they went wrong. And this is just a travesty and abolish the fan voting. Do you know why the All-Star game exists? Do you even know why the All-Star game started? We can forget about the fact that the All-Star game started during the Great Depression to boost morale for fans. It is an exhibition game. Nobody's career is defined by the All-Star game. We all know, any of us who watch baseball, we all know that PCA and James Wood are better than Teoscar Hernandez right now. We know CJ Abrams deserves to be recognized as having a better season than Mookie Betts this year. But you are getting up in arms over an exhibition game that means nothing. It means nothing. Used to determine who had home field advantage in the World Series. The American League won, the American League team had home field advantage. The National League team won, they had home field advantage. And it was ridiculous. And we saw it in its final year. It robbed us of seeing the Chicago Cubs break the 100-plus year curse and win the World Series in Wrigley, because the team that they were 10 games better than, the Cleveland Indians, that they played in the World Series, they had to go to Cleveland because Cleveland had home field advantage because the AL won the All-Star game, which they always did. Guys, don't waste your energy on something that doesn't matter. The All-Star game does not matter. People are getting genuinely upset that a fan favorite beats out a slightly better statistical player. You're spending emotional energy on a game nobody is trying to win. Nobody really cares. It means nothing. It means nothing. Seriously. And again, we're basing this off like their first half of the season. PCA was an MVP. He was like runner-up MVP if the season ended in July last year. If the season ended before the All-Star break, PCA was second to Ohtani. He was abysmal in the second half of 2025, and nobody really outside of delusional Cubs fans even thinks PCA's 2025 was that good, because it wasn't, because he fell apart at the end of the season. You still have half a season to go before you can even make judgment calls on these players. That's why we have the All-MLB team now. That truly recognizes among panels of voters, hey, here's the guys that actually were the best at their position. Here's where we can actually say, Ben Rice, Nick Kurtz, you are actually the best first baseman, not Vlad Jr., who isn't really having a good season, but played in the Midsummer Classic, because all of Canada votes for their team. It was created for the fans, guys. This event is for the fans. It's fun. It's not serious. All the players wear different uniforms. They're different teams. Every team has a representative. You know why? Because even the awful teams, the worst teams in the league that don't have an all-star caliber player, get to have a representative. You want to know why? Because they want every fan in every market to tune in and watch the All-Star game and hopefully see their one guy get an at-bat or get an inning pitched. It is not that deep. Stop chatting out about it. Stop freaking out. Stop getting upset about things that don't matter, because the All-Star game does not matter. It seriously doesn't. Vote for who you want to see play. Have fun. That's the entire point. I fill out an All-Star bracket and I'll vote the guys that I think are the most deserving. Do I think Andy Pages is necessarily at this moment in time better than PCA? No, I don't like PCA. I don't like him. I don't like what he said about Dodgers fans. I don't like the fact that he's turned his back on LA where he grew up. Therefore, if it's a kind of a toss-up, I'm going to go Pages. In the American League, I love Cody Bellinger. He's my favorite player in the league. I'm going to vote for him, even if he's not maybe, the most deserving in that moment. This year he is. Have fun with it. Vote for the guys you want to see. The Dodgers potentially having 7 starters is hilarious, and it's chaotic, but it's great for the fan base, and it's fun. It drives engagement. People are going to tune into the game, and these All-Star games, too, it's not like you guys act like people get voted on as starters and they play all 9 innings. These dudes come out in the second inning. Pitchers throw an inning. They have like 10, 12 different pitchers pitch in the All-Star game. You got like 4 different guys playing at each position by the time the game's over. Your guy's going to get in. The fan voting only counts for the starters. Roberts and the rest of his coaching staff, they're all going to do the coaches voting and the players voting, and they're going to vote in the guys to be on the bench who maybe actually deserve to start, who are having fantastic 2026 seasons, and they're going to get to play. It may not be in the first inning, but it'll be in the 4th inning. And you're really that bent out of shape. Grow up, seriously. If you're that upset about the All-Star game, go for a walk, touch some grass, go talk to a random stranger. Seriously, go do something. Take a cooking class, play guitar, learn to surf, learn to skateboard. Join a softball league. Go do something better with your time. Because if you're this up in arms about a freaking All-Star game that exists for the fans, for pure entertainment, and means literally nothing, complete exhibition, then there's no reasoning with you. So, we've talked All-Star break. We've talked All-Star game. What comes next in the MLB season is the trade deadline. That's the next big marker of the second half of, the MLB season, kind of coming down the stretch to the playoffs. And what trade deadline buzz do we have about the Dodgers? As we know, we've talked about one Detroit Tiger at length, Tarek Skubal becoming a Dodger, which I still believe the Dodgers have the inside track to get him. But I don't need to beat that dead horse. The Dodgers should get Skubal. That basically guarantees you a three-peat. But there's another rumor now that he may not be the only Detroit Tiger coming to rejoin the Los Angeles Dodgers, should say rejoin, when the deadline happens in August. So the Dodgers don't have any glaring holes. But that doesn't mean they don't want to add some depth. It doesn't mean they don't want to get better if they can, especially if the price is right. And a familiar name on the Detroit Tigers has emerged. Kenley Jansen, former Dodgers closer. Some may say the greatest Dodgers closer of all time. He eclipsed Eric Gagne in all-time saves. Now, Kenley Jansen's not what he once was in 2016, 2017 at his prime in LA, but on the season so far, he's got 22 strikeouts in 18 innings. He's got 9 saves. He was actually very good last season. He's been decent above average relief pitcher still with time with the Angels. And it could be a really low-cost lottery ticket for the Dodgers bullpen depth. Largely a lot of the same pitching coaches and staff that was in place when he left. Detroit has no need for a closer, so they're probably going to be willing to move him just to get something. And I think it could be kind of fun, honestly. It could be fun. I was ready for the Dodgers to move off Jansen when he still wanted $25 million a year to be a closer. But at this point, it's kind of nostalgic and it's fun. The great teams always bring their guys back. As much as I hate to say it, the Houston Astros couldn't help but bring Verlander and even though it's imploded in their face, Carlos Correa back. And the Dodgers bringing back Jansen would be kind of cool. They could use an extra right-handed relief pitcher. Why not? Kenley, California Love. Hearing him come out of the bullpen to California Love again, Sportsnet LA would skip the commercial break and keep it on. That would be great. Could you imagine a game when Diaz comes back? You have Kenley Jansen come out in the 7th or 8th inning to California Love to turn it over to the real closer, Edwin Diaz with the trumpets. I don't know. I think that'd be kind of fun. Anyways, aside from all the fun aspect of it, Kenley Jansen's largely been the same pitcher year over year. Doesn't give up a lot of hard contact, struggles with control a little bit, but he's valuable. Might struggle with the walks, might struggle with getting people on base, but again, he's not giving up the hard contact. He's not giving up tons of runs, so I don't know. If the Dodgers can fix his control, you might have a really nice setup man if you're able to make that happen. It'd be cool. Maybe he's getting towards retirement age. Maybe let the guy go out with a ring. He wasn't part of the last 2 World Series teams. He was an important part of those early Dodgers teams that should have gotten a ring. It'd be cool to see him get one. But anyways, what does this team need? What does the Dodgers team need at the deadline? And I've told you they don't really need anything. Sure, a bullpen arm, given Smith's temporary absence and the ERA concerns would be nice. Do they need a backup plan with Kyle Tucker's struggles? I don't really think so. I think the backup plan's called Ryan Ward. It's called James Tibbs. It's called Josue DePaula. Rotation insurance? Sure. They clearly know what they're doing with Glasnow and Snell. They just kind of sideline them until the late second half of the season, and they're fresh for October. And obviously there's the Tarek Skubal talk. ESPN's noted Friedman could engage with Detroit on that front, but there's no real pressure to do so. There's no drastic need for the Dodgers to do that. But again, I've iterated it again, and I'll say it till I'm blue in the face. Getting Tarek Skubal makes so much sense. With the CBA expiring in December, we're headed towards a lockout, obviously. This deadline could operate very differently than past years. Some teams could be hoarding 2027 assets for cap, which could kind of create opportunities, dry up the market based on negotiations. And hey man, Friedman doesn't overpay at deadlines, but the Tigers have no leverage. The only leverage they have is other teams that might be willing to outbid the Dodgers. And I don't think other teams that could outbid the Dodgers have the farm system depth that the Dodgers do to outbid them without depleting their assets, especially with a potential cap coming in. He makes surgical moves, but he also will go get the big fish if the price is right. And I think the price might be right. Skubal's going to be a free agent. The Dodgers may not be able to spend like they are right now forever. This is the chance to go get that three-peat. Because a rotation of Shohei, Yamamoto, Skubal, Glasnow, and Snell. You've never seen anything like it, and you never will if this happens. It'll happen once, enjoy it, probably watch a three-peat, and then we probably won't have baseball for another 6 or 8 months after, at least. So, this is the time, guys. This is the time for the Dodgers to strike while the iron's hot. Solidify this dynasty. I think it's already been solidified, but solidify this as Murderer's Row level baseball. And then the young guys will be ready to take the reins. And I think that leads perfectly into our final topic, the CBA news, the salary cap, the collective bargaining, the lockout, all the drama. What's happening? So as we know, and I've noted, MLB proposed a hard salary cap, which the players vehemently object. Hard salary cap of $245 million, salary floor of $171. They want to eliminate deferred money, which again, it's a direct shot at the Shohei Ohtani deal, where $680 million in future day value is deferred. Again, his full contract still counts against the luxury tax, still would count in a salary cap. The Dodgers haven't illegally circumvented anything. Shohei just doesn't want to pay California taxes when he retires, and honestly, I can't blame him. I don't like paying California taxes, and I'm in a tax bracket where I don't get, cooked the way Shohei does. But the MLB, this was funny. They launched a public campaign featuring videos of fans complaining about the Dodgers and a full thing of graphics showing a $466 million payroll gap between LA and Miami when they factor in the luxury tax and everything. The league used its own teams as villains in its marketing, which is really ironic when you think about it. CBA expires on December 1st. The two sides are as far apart as you could be to start negotiations. The MLB's actually offering, the MLB started somewhere where at least with their public posturing, it looked good. At least their initial offer, even though it was bad when you truly look into it, at least it looked good on the outset. Their second offer is further away from their initial offer. The things they keep mentioning, we don't want to have players eligible for the draft until they're 20 years old. Dude, you would be robbing people of Kevin McGonigal's unbelievable rookie season we have right now if that was the case. You want to ban drafting high school players. They're coming up with the most bogus arguments, and it's so blatantly apparent what this is all about. It's not about competitive balance. It's about money. It's pure propaganda. The owner's pushing for a salary cap because you think they genuinely believe it creates competitive balance. That is the sales pitch to the public. And guess what? 27 plus fan bases outside of LA and maybe New York. It's working and they're eating it up. Specifically Pirates fans, by the way. God, the worst. If you're a Pirates fan, I'm doubting your right to have an opinion on anything at this point, because you guys are so far off base. You have the worst owner. The bigger travesty to the sport is the fact that your owner doesn't want to spend to compete, but that's a whole other argument. There's a real motivation. Cost certainty dramatically improves franchise valuations. So if you put a salary cap in where it's like a fixed cost every year, it's going to be the same. Balance sheets like that, and private investment firms love that. Business people love fixed costs because it creates value. And in the era of regional sports networks collapsing and local TV money drying up, owners need predictable expenses on their balance sheet more than ever. Several teams are probably looking to sell. Artie Moreno was looking to sell the Angels. Now this is going on. I think he's going to try to milk this. Hopefully a lot of these owners want to see a salary cap and then they can sell their team at the highest value. And a salary cap makes those franchises more appealing. They're more sexy because these are billionaires we're dealing with, guys. Private equity firms can own stakes of MLB teams. And even if it's not private equity owning it, it's Guggenheim, it's John Henry, Fenway Sports Group. It's money people that see this as a financial asset first, not necessarily a team. This isn't the Walter O'Malley family that's giving out ice cream after Dodgers home wins to their staff. It's a machine. It's a company. It is late stage capitalism baseball. And a salary cap makes these teams more valuable. It's a business restructuring play dressed up as fairness. They're using fan resentment about the Dodgers to get public opinion on their side for something that really benefits the owner's bottom line. Commissioner Ranford really said, "We've tried mightily over several rounds of bargaining to use a competitive balance tax to address competitive concerns, and sometimes you've got to admit that you failed." But failure at competitive balance and wanting a hard cap are two different things. You can improve competitive balance without capping salaries, or even needing the MLB's PA's say on it, really. So this is the most important point. A hard salary cap in baseball is essentially, it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. The union will never consent to it. The players would let the sport burn to the ground. They would let the MLB burn to the ground and start a new league, start live baseball with Saudi Arabian money before this ever happens. The union has zero incentive to give in. And because of baseball's antitrust exemption, which is, again, that's the other thing that's funny, by the way. By the way, that is the other thing to talk about. You've got Rob Manfred and the MLB marketing team and all these people telling you, well, every other sport has a salary cap. Every other league's got this. Why can't we have it? Because no other league has an antitrust exemption. Businesses in the United States don't have antitrust exemptions, because it is the only legal tie that we have in this country to make sure people don't get ripped off and screwed royally. And the MLB is exempt to that. If the players cave on a salary cap, they lose all power in bargaining. The MLB owners have a distinct advantage. You want a salary cap, MLB? Go lobby to Congress or the Supreme Court to go overturn your antitrust exemption from 1922. Your 100-plus year antitrust exemption. Then we can have talks about a salary cap. Then we can have talks about being like every other league. But until you do that, it is a moot point, and the players are 100% in the right for not accepting a salary cap. It gets me heated, guys. It's just because people spout their opinions and they haven't done any research, and they're just driven by their hatred for the Dodgers. And I'm going to say this as a Dodgers fan. I don't care if there's a salary cap. Truthfully, I personally don't care. You want to know why? Because I know that the Dodgers are going to be a 90-plus win team with a salary cap, without a salary cap, spending exorbitant amounts of money, playing small ball and money ball. You want to know why I know that? Because the 2023 Dodgers won more regular season games than the 2024 and 2025 teams. Yes, the Dodgers build winners because not that the fact that they spend a lot of money, because they have the best farm system in baseball, they have the best front office, they have the smartest people running the team. They're just a different breed. It's ridiculous. I'm not saying this because I'm a mad Dodgers fan. I don't care if we can't spend like we used to. I want the sport to exist. I want to be watching baseball in 2027. That's my prerogative. But my point is, accepting a system that isn't good and makes no sense just because you're temporarily mad at circumstances is always a bad position to take. You don't give up your civil liberties for extra protection. Players are negotiating at a moment where their leverage is real. The game's more popular internationally than it's ever been. Shohei Ohtani alone has expanded the MLB's audience globally. And work stoppage hurts owners' valuations more than it hurts players' salaries. Yeah, I feel bad for the guys, the lower paid guys, the guys who are on their first contracts. It could suck for them. It's not going to suck for, obviously, the top guys in the MLB, like Bryce Harper, Tarek Skubal, possibly after his contract. So I feel for those guys. But at the end of the day, the owners especially guys that are tied to revenue and all these private equity firms, the last thing they want to do is drain money out of their asset. They're going to get to the table. But there's a slippery slope nobody's talking about with all this too, especially on the competitive balance thing. Here's a thought experiment worth raising. Let's say by some miracle a cap passes, right? Let's say a salary cap gets implemented into Major League Baseball. The Dodgers adapt because they will, because they're the best run organization in the sport, because they always have good farm systems. The guys that leave flourish. The guys that stay flourish. The guys that signed big contracts elsewhere signed big contracts because they were great and they were developed and they showed it over many, many years. They're the best run organization in baseball. They find every loophole. They find every market inefficiency, every international signing advantage. They stay great. And hey, it's the West Coast. It's the most beautiful place in the world to live. That's attractive to free agents. Same money, and you tell a guy, hey, dude, you can play in Cleveland, Ohio, or you can live in Los Angeles, California, where on Friday, June 26th, it's 75 degrees and sunny, couple clouds in the sky. And on December 26th, it's 74 degrees and sunny with a couple clouds in the sky. Where do you think that guy's going to pick? It's just, if you have the money to live in California, it's the best place in the world. Obviously, people are going to live there. So when the Dodgers continue to win, and the Dodgers continue to be great, because that's what they do, because that's what smart people do. They win and they find ways to win and they always prevail in the end. Then what? Do they cap how many prospects the Dodgers are allowed to develop? Put a spending limit on player development facilities and analytics departments and international scouting? And I've seen people argue for this on Twitter. Again, I saw some stupid Pirates fan, typical. At what point does competitive balance just become communism? Right? When is this just going to become a completely communist league? It becomes taking from a well-run organization to give to a poorly run one. Look at the NFL. There's a salary cap. Notice how in the last 30 years, they've been good outside of like 2 years. The Patriots have like largely been great. And since moving to LA, the Rams have pretty much been awesome. And the Cleveland Browns have been atrocious. And the Jets have been terrible. The Dolphins, hey, even when they have great players that last for like a year or two, they're in the gutter. The good teams remain good over a long period of time because they're well run, because smart people, hard workers, winners prevail. Winners prevail and losers sink. The Angels spend a lot of money. The Mets spend a lot of money. A lot of these teams spend money and they're not good. The Brewers spend very little money and they're consistently in the playoffs. Now, I'm not saying that there's not financial disparity. I'm not saying that having veteran stars on your team doesn't help. It does. I acknowledge that. But the point I'm trying to make is if you think for a second that the Dodgers are only good because they started signing all these guys, then you weren't watching baseball since Guggenheim bought them. They have been in the playoffs every year, and they have not spent at this level until the last 3 seasons. They've been great. They got to World Series. They won a World Series. They were cheated out of a World Series with a homegrown core. The Dodgers will remain good. They don't win because of money alone. Andrew Friedman is a genius. Best-in-class front office. Developmental system that turns prospects into contributors year after year. This is the same team that took Chris Taylor and made him an all-star. Took Justin Turner and made him a franchise cornerstone. Has taken Max Muncy and late into his career watched him blossom into the best third baseman in baseball. All 3 guys that were designated for assignment essentially off their team. Banished. Into the wild. Go away. You don't have value. The Dodgers saw value. They will always find a way to win. Fans of other teams are cheering for a salary cap because they think it'll make their team better. That's fool's gold. The Dodgers will be great regardless. The Angels, as long as Artie Moreno owns them, will be a disaster. The Pirates, as long as Bob Nutting owns them, won't have more than 1-2 seasons every decade where they're around 500 and somewhat competitive because he's cheap and he's not interested in running a winning franchise. And the New York Mets, unless David Stearns gets his hands on everything and really builds a team in the way he built the Milwaukee Brewers, won't go anywhere because spending money like the Angels have shown you year after year doesn't bring results. Competence, intelligence, research development, that makes up 2/3 of the success. Money's 1/3 of it. There's a huge other component. So, I don't know, guys. The question is just, would the other 29 teams choose to get better or choose to wait for someone to legislate the Dodgers' downfall? Like, what are we going to do? At what point does it just become you being a petulant child? You're mad that you were born in a city and out of fear of being a bandwagon, because that's everybody's worst fear, apparently, you'll never get to see your team win a championship. Sorry. I think excellence, big markets, smart people, hardworking people, committed, diligent people deserve to have success. And I think people that aren't committed to the process and don't really have any interest in running things the right way don't deserve that level of success. I think most people agree with me on that one too. So, I don't know, guys. This isn't just a business negotiation. If the lockout drags into spring training, we could lose regular season games. That's not good. That's the real threat sitting behind all this. So, stay informed. Don't let the propaganda framing do the thinking for you. And I'm not saying this because I'm like, ardent, like pro player. Like, I really don't care. I care about baseball being played. I love the sport. I don't want Major League Baseball to go away for an extended period of time. I want them to come to an agreement, but I'm not going to fault the players for making the obvious choice in labor negotiations. It just doesn't make much sense. But anyways, guys, Padres series starting this week. Huge series for the Dodgers. Phase 2 of All-Star voting, it opens up Monday. Go vote your Dodgers in. Piss everybody off that wants to see, CJ Abrams and whoever else. After this weekend series, I think we're going to come back and have a lot to discuss. But all in all, Dodgers fans, baseball fans, whoever chose to listen to me, thank you for making it this far into the video. If you enjoyed what you heard, please subscribe. Please like, comment, be part of the conversation. Tell me what you want to hear. Follow me on my socials at Ballpark ELA. I'll give you some short form stuff. I'll give you my live real thoughts, whatever. But again, we're getting to some very tense times in Major League Baseball. Stay informed, stick true to your beliefs, be smart, follow your boy. He'll tell you everything you need to know. And until then, Dodgers fans, enjoy the weekend. Be safe.